The steel of a skyscraper and the stones of a pyramid speak the same silent language. You are surrounded by ancient engineering concepts every single day, hidden in plain sight within our modern cities. By the end of this journey, you will see the entire built world through a new lens, recognizing the timeless ingenuity woven into its fabric. How did a Roman recipe for concrete survive 2,000 years underwater? And what does a Persian chimney have to do with saving energy today? The answers reveal a secret dialogue between builders across millennia. What does it mean for our future that the oldest solutions are often the smartest ones? These ancient builders did not have our digital models or industrial machinery. They had stone, timber, mud, and human ingenuity. Their greatest tools were not made of iron, but of observation and patience. They watched how rivers carved valleys over centuries, noting the angles of stability in natural slopes. They saw how certain shapes withstood the wind, and how materials expanded and contracted with the seasons. Every solution began with a profound question rooted in necessity. How do we shelter our people from the elements? How do we create a space that uplifts the human spirit? How do we build something that will outlast us, to speak to generations we will never meet? The drive was not merely functional. It was communal, often spiritual, and deeply connected to the order of the world itself. A pyramid was not just a tomb, it was a stairway to the heavens, engineered with celestial precision. An aqueduct was not just a water pipe, it was a lifeline for a city, a declaration of civic order. In the Andes, they built terraces not only to farm steep mountainsides but to converse with the landscape, to prevent the very soil from washing away. Each culture, from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, worked with what they had, turning local limitations into legendary strengths. They operated on a scale of time we can barely grasp today, planning projects that would take lifetimes to complete, trusting that their children's children would finish the vision. This long-term thinking, this marriage of practical need and symbolic meaning, created a foundation of knowledge so deeply tested and so inherently logical that it never truly became obsolete. Instead, it went quiet, waiting for us to rediscover its wisdom within our steel and glass. That silent language of the builders found its first clear grammar in a single, elegant curve. A stone is strong in compression, able to bear tremendous weight pushing down on it, but place it across an open space as a simple beam and it becomes vulnerable, liable to crack under its own load. Ancient engineers from Mesopotamia to the Etruscans wrestled with this limitation, stacking stones in ever-widening arrangements until a revelation took shape. By arranging stones in a semicircle, they created a structure that transformed a weakness into its greatest strength. The weight of the masonry and anything above it is no longer a burden pulling straight down, but a force that is channeled outward along the curve of the arch, pushing each wedge-shaped stone, called a voussoir, firmly against its neighbors. This mutual pressure locks the entire assembly into place through pure compression, creating a stable gateway of empty space. The Romans did not invent the arch, but they perfected it, industrialized it, and built an empire upon its back. They understood its logic so completely that they could repeat it by the thousands, creating the skeletal frameworks of aqueducts that strode across valleys and the layered facades of amphitheaters like the Colosseum. That structure is not a solid wall. It is a braced lattice of arches, a masterpiece of efficient engineering that creates both immense strength and public spectacle, proving that the most durable form often embraces the void it surrounds. This principle of redirecting force through curvature is the unshakable grandfather of the modern structural span. When you drive under a stone bridge, you are passing through a Roman idea. When you marvel at the vast, column-free concourse of a train station or an airport terminal, You are standing in a space made possible by the arch's evolved descendants, the vault and the dome. Every curved roof that shelters a stadium full of people is a direct echo of that ancient understanding, a testament to an idea so fundamentally sound that it has never been surpassed, only refined with new materials. It is a profound lesson from the past that sometimes to create lasting strength and open space, you must build a curved line, because a curve understands the flow of force in a way a straight line never could. The arch taught us to redirect force, but another Roman innovation learned to become one with it. To walk along the coast near Naples is to witness a material defying time itself. Submerged for 2 millennia, great concrete harbors and breakwaters still stand against the relentless sea, their surfaces smoother and harder than the day they were poured. Modern concrete, for all its strength, often crumbles in saltwater within decades. So what did the Romans know that we forgot? Their secret was not in the strength of their will, but in the chemistry of their volcanic soil. They discovered that mixing lime with a fine, reactive ash called pozzolana, found near the volcano Vesuvius, created a magic in the mix. When combined with water and aggregate, it triggered a slow, long-term chemical reaction, a process called pozzolanic reaction. This didn't just create a paste that hardened, it created a crystalline glue that actually grew stronger over centuries, binding the rubble into a monolithic stone that was not only immensely strong but also hydraulic, meaning it could set and cure even underwater. This was concrete not as a cheap, fast filler, but as a crafted, living stone. For generations, this recipe was lost, a footnote in history books, while the modern world built with a faster, weaker formula reliant on Portland cement, a process that generates a massive amount of carbon emissions. But now, in laboratories from MIT to ancient port sites, materials scientists are conducting a fascinating kind of reverse engineering. They are not just studying Roman concrete, they are actively decoding it, using advanced tools to understand its nanostructure. The goal is revolutionary: to create new concrete mixes that mimic this ancient wisdom. Imagine a future concrete that requires far less energy to produce, drastically cutting the carbon footprint of our cities. Envision a material embedded with bacteria or crystalline compounds that allow it to self-heal tiny cracks, just as the Roman concrete seemed to do, extending the life of our bridges and buildings for centuries without constant repair. This is not mere nostalgia, it is a profound realization. The pursuit of sustainability, of building things to last in harmony with their environment, is not a new 21st century concept. It is a very old one. The Romans, in their pragmatic genius, built for eternity because they had to. They lacked our capacity for cheap, disposable replacement. Their concrete recipe shows us that the most advanced material science might not always lie ahead of us, but sometimes patiently behind us, waiting in the ruins to teach us how to literally cement a more resilient future. A material that becomes one with its environment creates a foundation, but what do you build upon it? You create order. This brings us to the third ancient concept, a pattern so fundamental it shapes your daily navigation through a modern city. The grid plan. When you walk the orderly streets of Manhattan or navigate the uniform blocks of Barcelona's Eixample district, you are not experiencing a modern invention. You are walking on a blueprint for civilization that is over 4,000 years old. This was not born from aesthetic preference, but from a profound need to impose logic upon chaos, to create a shared, equitable, and defensible space for a community to thrive. One of the earliest and most stunning examples comes from the Indus Valley city of Mohenjo-Daro, a thriving metropolis built around 2,600 years before the Common Era. Its planners laid out wide main streets running north-south, crossed by smaller east-west lanes, creating a precise rectilinear grid. This was not an accident. This was a deliberate statement. The grid allowed for efficient drainage through a sophisticated, city-wide sewer system, something many modern cities struggled with millennia later. It standardized the size of city blocks, suggesting a remarkably equitable approach to land distribution. And critically, it created clear lines of sight and movement, making the city easier to defend, administer, and navigate. The idea resurfaced with powerful philosophical intent in ancient Greece. After the city of Miletus was destroyed, the planner Hippodamus was tasked with its reconstruction. He saw the grid not just as a practical tool, but as the physical manifestation of democratic ideals. His plan divided the city into zones for public, private, and sacred use, all connected by a logical network of straight streets. This was urban planning as social engineering, a belief that an orderly environment could foster an orderly and participatory society. The straight, intersecting streets were a rejection of the tangled, hierarchical pathways of older, aristocratic cities. So why does this ancient pattern dominate so much of our modern world, from the suburbs of Phoenix to the downtown cores of countless cities? Because the logic is timelessly efficient. A grid is infinitely scalable. You can simply add another row of blocks as a city grows. It simplifies the layout of infrastructure. Every pipe, power line, and gas main can follow a predictable, linear path. It disperses traffic, offering multiple routes to any destination instead of funneling everyone onto a few congested arteries. And on a human level, it creates a legible, navigable environment. You are never truly lost in a grid. You can reorient yourself with just a few turns. The ancient grid was far more than a convenient arrangement of streets. It was a statement of foresight and social order carved into the earth itself. It declared that a city should be built not just for the people living in it today, but for the generations to come, and that the fairest way to share a space is through clear, common logic. Every time you use a simple address system or take a shortcut through city blocks, you are benefiting from that ancient vision, a testament to the idea that the most enduring framework for community is one built on clear lines and shared understanding. That simple, powerful logic of the grid gave structure to the ground. But what about the space above it? The answer lies in perhaps the most fundamental architectural act ever conceived, one so primal you see it every time you walk through a doorway. Two vertical posts supporting a single horizontal beam. This is the post and lintel system, the original framework of human construction. Long before the first arch was ever sketched or the first concrete mix was poured, our ancestors understood this essential truth, that to create a sheltered void, you must first define its edges with unwavering support. Look at the monumental trilithons of Stonehenge, those massive upright stones capped by equally massive lintels. They are not just a calendar in stone, they are a bold declaration of this principle, a permanent frame set against the sky. In the sun-baked courtyards of Egyptian temples like Karnak, forests of stone columns, which are essentially clustered posts, hold up immense stone lintels and roof slabs, creating shaded colonnades that feel both grand and mysteriously intimate. The Greeks refined this system into an art form. Their Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns and the entablatures they support are a celebration of the post and lintel, proportioned to perfection to convey strength, grace, and civic order. The concept is beautifully simple. Two posts bear the load in compression, pushing straight down into the ground, while the lintel spans the gap between them, acting as a beam in bending, resisting the forces trying to make it sag. This defines the very essence of an opening, a portal, a window to the world. It creates a clear distinction between solid and void, between support and sheltered space. And while the materials have evolved from timber and stone to steel and reinforced concrete, the fundamental grammar has not changed one bit. What is the steel frame of a modern skyscraper, if not a towering, multi-story lattice of posts and lintels? The vertical steel columns are the posts, carrying the cumulative weight of the entire building down to its foundations. The horizontal steel beams and girders that connect them are the lintels, spanning from column to create the floors and support the outer walls. Even the reinforced concrete frame of a parking garage or an office building follows this exact same ancient logic. The post and lintel system teaches us the first lesson of structure. Load must find a clear, continuous path to the earth. It shows us that complexity is often built upon profound simplicity. From the stone gateway of a Neolithic tomb to the glass curtain wall of a 50-story tower, we are still engaging in that same foundational act, raising posts and laying lintels, using the strength of verticals to liberate the space between them. It is the skeletal alphabet from which almost all framed architecture is written, a simple idea that holds up our entire world. That skeletal framework of posts and lintels creates a stable box, but what if you wanted to build a box for the sky itself? This brings us to the dome, an ancient concept that represents one of humanity's most audacious architectural dreams, to enclose vast space without any internal support, to build a heavens on earth. The supreme testament to this ambition still stands in Rome, the Pantheon. Completed under Emperor Hadrian around the year 126, its interior is dominated by a single, breathtaking feature, a concrete dome 43.3 meters in diameter. For over 1900 years, it remained the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome, a record of breathtaking scale. To stand beneath it is to experience a profound architectural illusion. The immense weight of all that stone and concrete seems to vanish, leaving only a perfect, luminous sphere of space. The dome achieves this magic by applying the principle of the arch in every direction, rotating it 360 degrees to create a continuous shell of compression. Each segment of the curve, like each stone in an arch, channels its load downward and outward, pushing against its neighbors to form a stable, self-supporting hemisphere. The Roman engineers were masterful problem solvers. They knew the immense weight at the top of the dome could cause it to crack and collapse. Their ingenious solution was to vary the concrete mix, using lighter, porous volcanic stone aggregate at the top and heavier travertine at the thick base. They also carved the interior surface with deep, recessed panels called coffers, which served a dual purpose. They created a stunning geometric pattern that draws the eye upward, and critically, they removed tons of non-essential material, lightening the dome's overall load without sacrificing its strength. This was engineering as high art, a calculated dance with gravity and mass. The Byzantine Empire later refined this idea with pendentives, curved triangular supports that allowed them to place a circular dome atop a square base, leading to the soaring, mosaic-filled heavens of churches like the Hagia Sophia. This ancient drive to create vast, unobstructed interior space never faded. It simply evolved. Look at the great sports stadiums that shelter tens of thousands under a single roof, or the immersive dome of a planetarium that replicates the night sky, or the majestic Capitol buildings crowned with symbolic domes of liberty and unity. Each is a direct descendant of that Roman ambition. In the 20th century, the visionary Buckminster Fuller took the ancient logic of the sphere and reimagined it with modern mathematics and materials, creating the geodesic dome. This structure, a lattice of lightweight struts arranged in triangles to form a partial sphere, applies the same principle of maximum volume with minimal material, but achieves it through geometric efficiency rather than solid mass. It is proof that the dome is not a static relic, but a living concept. From the Pantheon's solid concrete sky to the airy, lightweight fabric roofs of modern arenas, the dome continues to represent our highest aspiration, to create spaces that are not just shelters, but experiences that lift our gaze and, in doing so, lift our spirits. It is architecture reaching for the sublime, a testament to the idea that the most powerful structures are those that make us feel both sheltered and wonderfully small, all at once. A dome creates a perfect heavens, but how do you reach out from the solid earth into the open air? The answer is a feat of balance so daring it feels like magic, the cantilever. The iconic image of Frank Lloyd Wright's falling waiter, its concrete terraces jutting dramatically over a waterfall, appears to be a triumph of 20th century audacity. Yet the principle that makes it possible, a beam anchored firmly at only one end, is an ancient art of projection mastered by builders who understood leverage as an extension of the body itself. In the forested mountains of ancient China, temple builders faced a constant challenge: how to create wide, sheltering eaves to protect delicate wooden structures from rain and sun without a forest of obstructive columns. Their ingenious solution was the dugong, an intricate system of interlocking wooden brackets. These brackets, stacked in layers, acted as a series of cascading cantilevers. Each bracket arm extended outward, supported only by the one beneath it, transferring the immense weight of the heavy tiled roof backwards along the wooden skeleton and down into the primary columns. This created those graceful, swooping roofs that seemed to float above the temple, a masterpiece of calculated balance that allowed interior spaces to remain open and column-free. Far across the world, the Maya employed a similar understanding in their corbelled arches, where each stone course projected slightly beyond the one below, gradually bridging a gap through a stepped, cantilevered action. The physics are a beautiful defiance of expectation. A cantilever works by creating a deep internal tension, a silent battle between forces. The anchored end of the beam resists a powerful rotating force called a moment that wants to pull the free end downward. The material at the top of the beam near the wall is stretched in tension, while the material at the bottom is squeezed in compression. A successful cantilever is a material holding its own internal argument perfectly in check, a frozen lever. This ancient mastery of balance and leverage is not a historical curiosity. It is the silent engine behind some of our most dramatic modern structures. The sweeping, wing-like roofs of sports stadiums that shelter thousands of seats without a single forward column are vast cantilevers. The thrilling observation decks that extend over canyon rims, the streamlined balconies on a glass skyscraper, even the humble kitchen countertop that extends past its cabinets, all rely on this same principle. It allows architects to create visual poetry, to make mass appear weightless, to reach out into space and claim it without filling it. The cantilever shows us that true strength often lies not in sheer bulk, but in precise counterbalance, in understanding how to make a structure reach confidently into the void by holding on with profound intelligence at just a single point. It is the architectural equivalent of a deep breath held, a moment of perfect equilibrium between earth and air. But a structure that reaches into the void must also know how to stand its ground when the ground itself refuses to stand still. For thousands of years, long before anyone understood plate tectonics, human settlements have been built in landscapes that occasionally tremble and shake. In these places, architecture faced its ultimate test, and the response was not to fight the Earth's power, but to learn its rhythm. Ancient builders developed a profound conversation with instability, creating forms that could dance with disaster rather than resist it. High in the Andes, the Inca stonemasons of Machu Picchu achieved something that still baffles modern engineers. They fitted enormous granite blocks together using a technique called ashlar masonry, cutting each stone with such impossible precision that not even a knife blade could slip between them. Yet this was not about creating a rigid, monolithic wall. The genius was in the joints. The stones were often slightly trapezoidal, locking together in a dynamic puzzle. During an earthquake, these meticulously fitted blocks could shift, rock, and even settle slightly as energy traveled through the structure. They would dissipate the force through countless tiny movements along their seams, then settle back into place, a stone tapestry that could breathe with the mountain. It was a system of distributed flexibility where the entire wall became a shock absorber. Across the Pacific, Japanese builders arrived at a different yet equally brilliant solution for their multi-story pagodas. These slender, graceful towers have survived centuries in one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. Their secret lies deep within their core, a massive central pillar called a shinbashira. This pillar, often a single, giant tree trunk, is not rigidly attached to the building's frame. Instead, it hangs like a pendulum or rests on a base stone, connected to the complex bracketing of each story by loose joints. When the ground shakes, the flexible wooden frame of the pagoda sways in one direction, while the heavy central pillar lags behind, swinging in the opposite direction. This counter-motion acts as a giant inertial damper, absorbing the seismic energy and preventing the building from whipping itself apart. It is a masterpiece of passive engineering, using balance and mass to achieve stability. Today's structural engineers are not just admiring these ancient ideas, they are actively learning from them. The modern concept of base isolation directly echoes this ancient wisdom of decoupling a structure from ground motion. Instead of trying to build a foundation strong enough to resist any force, engineers now often place buildings on flexible bearings made of layered rubber and steel. These bearings allow the ground to move underneath while the structure above floats relatively undisturbed, much like a pagoda swaying around its central pillar. The ancient dialogue with environmental forces teaches a critical lesson, one that runs counter to our instinct. In the face of immense, unpredictable power, resilience rarely comes from sheer rigidity. A rigid structure concentrates stress, meets force with an equal and opposite force, and risks shattering. True resilience, as the Inca stonemasons and Japanese carpenters understood, comes from a kind of intelligent flexibility. It comes from designing systems that can absorb, redistribute, and dissipate energy that can move without breaking. It is a philosophy of harmony over domination, suggesting that the strongest relationship with our planet is not one of conquest, but of graceful, adapted coexistence. The resilience of ancient structures came from listening to the earth, but what about listening to the wind? In the scorching heart of the Persian desert, where summer temperatures could make stone blister, architects faced a paradox. How do you cool a building without any power, without any moving parts, without fighting the very climate you live in? Their answer rose silently against the skyline, not as a wall, but as a slender, towering scoop. The Badger or Windcatcher was a masterpiece of passive engineering, a thermostat carved from clay and intuition. It worked on principles so elegantly simple they feel like pure magic. A tall, chimney-like tower, open on multiple sides, was positioned to capture the slightest prevailing breeze, especially the cooler winds that flowed at higher altitudes. These captured breezes were then funneled down the shaft, often directed over an interior pool of water or a canat, an underground canal. The air would be cooled by evaporation before flowing into the living spaces below. Simultaneously, the system created a convection current. Hot, stale indoor air, being lighter, would rise and escape through the same tower, often through a different set of openings, creating a continuous, self-sustaining cycle of refreshment. This was not just air conditioning, it was climate sculpting, using geometry and physics to weave comfort from thin air. The Windcatcher did not consume a single watt of energy. It required no maintenance beyond the occasional clearing of sand, and it operated in profound silence for centuries. This ancient concept of bioclimatic design, of shaping a building to work in concert with its environment, is not a historical footnote. It is the beating heart of modern sustainable architecture. Today, the principles of the Badger are being reimagined with sophisticated computer modeling and new materials. Modern wind towers, often integrated into the facades of large buildings, use the same stack effect to draw fresh air through offices and apartments, drastically reducing the need for mechanical cooling. Solar chimneys use stark, heat-absorbent materials to warm a column of air, causing it to rise rapidly and pull cooler air through a building, a direct descendant of that ancient understanding of thermal currents. Architects now meticulously study sun paths and prevailing winds, orienting buildings and designing openings to promote natural cross-ventilation, a practice called passive cooling. The lesson of the Windcatcher is profound and urgently relevant. For decades, modern design often defaulted to a brute force approach, using massive amounts of energy to create a sealed, artificial interior climate, fighting the local environment at every turn. The Badger reminds us that the smartest, most sustainable solutions often involve a subtle redirecting of natural forces, not an overpowering of them. It represents a philosophy of humility and intelligence where the building itself becomes an instrument tuned to the rhythms of sun, wind, and water. In an era of climate urgency and soaring energy costs, this ancient tower is more than a relic. It is a blueprint proving that true comfort and true sustainability have always been two sides of the same cleverly designed coin. There is a quiet mathematics to beauty, a hidden code that ancient builders believed was woven into the fabric of the universe itself. After mastering the flow of forces and the dialogue with climate, they turned their attention to a more elusive principle, the engineering of harmony. They sought not just to build structures that stood, but structures that sang, believing that true stability resided in proportions that pleased the eye and the spirit. This quest led them to a mysterious number, approximately 1.618, known as the golden ratio, observed in the spiral of a nautilus shell and the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. This ratio was seen as a divine proportion, a geometric secret to perfect balance. Its influence is etched into the most revered monuments of antiquity. The facade of the Parthenon in Athens appears to fit within a series of rectangles whose side lengths adhere to this golden ratio, creating a subliminal sense of order and majesty. Even the Great Pyramid of Giza's dimensions incorporate ratios startlingly close to this ancient constant, suggesting a deliberate, if not fully understood, application of sacred geometry. This was more than decoration, it was a philosophical stance, a conviction that beauty was not arbitrary but followed immutable mathematical laws, and that a building aligned with these cosmic rules would possess a deeper, almost spiritual resonance. This belief did not fade with the classical world, it was rediscovered with fervor during the Renaissance. Architects like Leon Battista Alberti and Leonardo da Vinci studied Vitruvius and the ruins of Rome, explicitly using the golden ratio and other harmonic proportions to design churches and palaces that felt inherently right, their windows, doors, and entire floor plans locked into a silent, proportional symphony. The legacy of this ancient pursuit is not a dusty formula in a textbook, but a living, often subconscious, guide in design today. Modern architects may not calculate the golden ratio for every window pane, but the principles it embodies, balance, rhythm, and proportional relationship, are fundamental to their craft. A skyscraper's step-backs that create a graceful taper, the repetitive bay windows on a classic apartment building that establish a visual rhythm, even the layout of a room where furniture is arranged to feel neither crowded nor sparse, all tap into this ancient understanding. It explains why some spaces feel chaotic and unsettling, while others feel calm and centered. It is often a matter of proportion. This reveals a profound truth about those ancient engineers. They were not merely solving problems of load and shelter, they were artists and philosophers of space. They were searching for a universal language of form, a visual grammar that would communicate order, stability, and beauty across millennia. When a modern building feels timeless, when its facade feels resolved and its interiors feel intuitively comfortable, it is often because, knowingly or not, the designer has tuned into that same ancient frequency, proving that the most enduring structures are those built not just with stone and mortar, but with harmony and number. The mathematical harmony of a facade means little if the city behind it cannot quench its thirst. Ancient engineers understood that a civilization's true strength flowed not through its walls but through its water. The Romans elevated this understanding into an art form of staggering ambition, building networks that did not merely transport water, but choreographed its very journey across the landscape. Their aqueducts were not simple trenches, they were elevated rivers of stone, masterpieces of gravity-fed logic. To bring fresh water from mountain springs dozens of kilometers away into the heart of a metropolis like Rome required a precision that feels almost superhuman. The secret was in the relentless, gentle slope. Engineers calculated a gradient, often as slight as 1 foot of drop for every 200 feet of distance, and then carved that line across valleys and through hillsides with unerring accuracy. This precise incline allowed water to flow steadily, swiftly enough to prevent stagnation, but gently enough to prevent erosion of the channel walls. Some aqueducts ran for over 50 kilometers, a continuous, whispering descent that turned geography into a servant. But the aqueduct was only the most visible artery of a vast, integrated circulatory system. The water was channeled into massive settling tanks where sand and silt would drift to the bottom, a simple yet effective form of purification. From there, it flowed through covered conduits to prevent contamination, feeding public fountains, bathhouses, and the homes of the wealthy. The used water was then carried away by another marvel, the Cloaca Maxima, a covered sewer that drained the forum and helped keep the city healthy. This was not a collection of isolated projects, it was a single, holistic vision for urban life, where supply, distribution, public access, and waste removal were all parts of one engineered organism. The principles embedded in this ancient network are the very bedrock of modern municipal engineering. Every time you turn on a tap and receive clean, pressurized water, you are benefiting from the evolved legacy of the Roman system. The gravity-fed reservoirs in hills above our cities, the sedimentation basins in water treatment plants, the covered pipes that snake beneath our streets to protect water quality, even the storm drains that channel rainwater away, all follow a blueprint refined 2,000 years ago. Today, as communities worldwide grapple with water scarcity and the immense energy costs of pumping water, engineers are looking back at this paradigm with renewed reverence. The ancient model teaches a powerful lesson in sustainability. It shows that the most resilient systems often work with nature's simplest force, gravity, rather than constantly fighting against it. Modern projects in sustainable urban design now seek to recreate integrated, closed-loop water cycles, capturing rainwater, treating greywater on site, and mimicking natural drainage, all in an effort to restore that lost harmony between a city and its most vital resource. The Roman aqueduct stands not as a relic of a bygone empire, but as a timeless testament to civic foresight, proving that the highest function of engineering is to weave the essential elements of life, quite literally, into the fabric of the city itself. A wall can be far more than a divider. In its oldest and most fundamental role, it is the very spine of a building, a declaration of permanence carved from the landscape itself. This is the bearing wall, an engineering concept of profound simplicity, where the vertical surface that defines your room also carries the entire weight of the roof, the floors, and the sky above. Long before the internal skeleton of a frame was conceived, this was the way humanity built, trusting in the monolithic strength of mass. The staggering scale of the Great Wall of China is a testament to this idea, a continuous, fortified bearing wall that transformed a national boundary into an architectural and defensive entity. In the stone keeps of medieval castles, walls several meters thick were not an extravagance. They were an absolute necessity, bearing the colossal weight of battlements and withstanding the brutal force of siege engines. The wall was the structure. Its purpose was singular and honest: to enclose, to protect, and to support, all at once. This method creates a particular kind of space, one that feels solid, grounded, and inherently secure, because every surface you touch is fundamentally holding everything up. The arrival of steel and reinforced concrete frames in the modern era seemed to relegate the bearing wall to history, allowing for the free plan where interior walls could be thin, movable, and non-structural. But the ancient principle did not vanish. It evolved and found a powerful new expression. In our tallest skyscrapers, which appear to be sheer glass, the core of the building is often a massive, vertical tube of reinforced concrete, a modern bearing wall in essence. This core houses elevators and stairs, and it acts as a rigid spine, a sheer wall that resists the powerful lateral forces of wind and seismic activity, allowing the rest of the building to be light and open. Even in low-rise construction, the bearing wall remains a champion of efficiency and resilience, particularly in the form of structurally insulated panels or modern masonry. The lesson here is one of structural honesty and enduring logic. The bearing wall concept teaches us about the intelligent use of mass, about making every element work doubly hard. It reminds us that the most straightforward solution, using the envelope as the structure, is often incredibly robust, cost-effective, and enduring. In an age of complex systems, there is a timeless elegance in a wall that simply stands, holding up its own world, a quiet monument to the idea that true strength often lies not in hidden complexity, but in declared, integral purpose. That monolithic strength of a bearing wall relies on sheer mass, but what if you could achieve even greater spans with a fraction of the weight? The solution lies in a shape of perfect inherent stability, the triangle. While the arch mastered the curve, and the post and lintel defined the rectangle, ancient builders discovered that the triangle refused to be pushed out of shape. This geometric truth, the principle of triangulation, gave birth to one of the most efficient structural forms in history, the truss. In its simplest form, a truss is an assembly of straight members, typically arranged in interconnected triangles, designed to carry loads over a span. The genius is in the distribution of force. When a load is applied, the members of a truss are subjected primarily to either tension, being pulled apart, or compression, being pushed together. The triangular configuration ensures that these forces are channeled along the straight lines of the members directly to the supports, eliminating the bending that would weaken a simple beam. This allows a truss to achieve remarkable strength and span with surprisingly slender, lightweight pieces of wood or metal. We see early, intuitive applications of this principle in the roof structures of ancient Greek temples and Egyptian buildings, where timber beams were arranged in triangular gables to support wide roofs, a basic form of a king post truss. These builders may not have calculated the precise forces, but they understood through experience that a triangular framework locked itself into rigidity. It was a geometric secret to making lightweight materials behave like monolithic stone. The full potential of this ancient insight was unlocked in the modern era with the advent of iron and steel. Engineers could now design intricate lattices of precisely calculated members, creating trusses that could span rivers, cover train sheds, and hold up the roofs of vast industrial halls. The iconic railway bridges of the 19th century, with their intricate webs of iron triangles, are monuments to the truss, demonstrating how a simple geometric truth could tame distance. Today, this principle is everywhere you look, though you might not always see it. The supportive framework under the roof of your house is almost certainly a wooden truss. The soaring, lightweight space frame that creates the vast, column-free canopy of an airport terminal is a three-dimensional evolution of the truss, a lattice of steel tubes forming thousands of tiny triangles to enclose immense space. Even the elegant skeleton of a modern bicycle frame employs triangulation to achieve a rigid yet incredibly light structure. The truss teaches a profound lesson in material intelligence. It shows us that raw strength is not always about using more material, but about using material more cleverly, about organizing it into a form that guides force along the most efficient paths. From the timber roofs of antiquity to the steel bridges that stitch continents together, the truss stands as a testament to the power of a simple idea, proving that sometimes the most advanced engineering begins with the most elementary shape, one that has three sides and an unshakable will to hold its form. A healthy city is built on what you cannot see. Beneath the polished marble of the Roman Forum, a hidden river flowed, one that carried away the very definition of urban waste and laid the groundwork for public health itself. This was the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Sewer, an engineering project so foundational it began in the 6th century before the Common Era, under the rule of the Etruscan kings. Its purpose was audaciously simple yet profoundly revolutionary: to systematically drain the marshy, flood-prone valley between Rome's hills and channel the runoff into the Tiber River. What began as an open ditch was later vaulted over with stone, transforming it into a covered, subterranean channel, a hidden artery that served the city for over 1,000 years. This was not merely a ditch for stormwater, it was a deliberate civic acknowledgement of a fundamental truth that for a dense population to thrive, its waste must be managed, not ignored. The Cloaca Maxima represented a monumental shift in thinking, elevating public health from an individual concern to an engineered, communal responsibility. It recognized that the vitality of the public spaces above, where laws were debated and citizens gathered, was intrinsically linked to the unseen systems below. The principle it established, using graded, underground channels to direct flow away from living areas by gravity, is so logically perfect it has never been replaced. Every modern municipal sewer and drainage system, with its vast networks of pipes, manholes, and treatment plants, is a direct, massively scaled-up descendant of that ancient Roman insight. We still rely on gravity-fed slopes to move wastewater. We still separate storm drains from sanitary sewers in many places, and we still understand that managing this flow is not a luxury, but a non-negotiable pillar of civilization. The lesson of the Cloaca Maxima is one of humble, essential foresight. It teaches that the greatest marks of an advanced society are often its most invisible infrastructures, the systems that operate silently beneath our feet to prevent illness, manage resources, and allow daily life to proceed without a second thought. When you flush a toilet or watch rainwater vanish into a street grate, you are participating in a ritual of urban health that is over 2,500 years old. It underscores a timeless understanding that true engineering genius often lies not in the monuments that scrape the sky, but in the channels that protect the ground, prioritizing the long-term well-being of the community through the most fundamental acts of care. This ancient commitment to public health through infrastructure remains the unsung, indispensable foundation upon which every great city is quietly built. While the sewers managed the city's unseen necessities, the Roman home cultivated a very different kind of space, one dedicated to light, air, and the life of the family itself. Step through the front door of a wealthy Roman domus, and you would leave the noisy street to enter a world of serene inward focus. The heart of this home was not a crowded living room, but an open sky. This was the Atrium, a central courtyard open to the heavens, around which every other room quietly arranged itself. It was a brilliant inversion of expectation. Instead of building outward, they carved a void into the very center of the structure, a deliberate emptiness that became the home's most vital feature. A shallow pool, the impluvium, sat directly below the open roof to catch rainwater, a practical element that also added the soothing sound and coolness of water. But the atrium's purpose was far greater than utility. It was the home's private lung and its social soul. Here, natural light, diffused and gentle, poured down to illuminate the surrounding rooms, eliminating the need for dark, windowless corridors. Fresh air circulated freely, drawn through the house by this central opening. This was where the family gathered for important rituals, where guests were formally received, and where the bustle of daily life naturally converged under the watchful gaze of the household gods. The atrium created a profound connection to the natural world, the weather, and the passage of the sun, all from within the secure, private bounds of the home. It was architecture as a vessel for experience, shaping not just shelter but a way of living. This ancient concept of a central void, an interior landscape carved from light and air, never faded from our architectural imagination. It is the direct ancestor of the serene courtyards found in Spanish and Mediterranean homes, quiet oases shielded from the outside world. In the dense urban fabric of the 19th century, tenement buildings often included narrow light wells, a humble but crucial adaptation of the atrium idea, bringing a sliver of sky and ventilation into deep interior apartments. Today, the principle has been reborn on a grand, spectacular scale. Walk into the soaring lobby of a modern hotel or office tower, where a vast, multi-story atrium rises through the core of the building. This is not merely an extravagant lobby, it is a direct descendant of the Roman atrium, engineered for the same fundamental reasons. These immense volumes dramatically improve natural lighting for interior spaces that would otherwise be dark and dependent on artificial light. They create a stack effect where warm air rises and escapes through high openings, pulling cooler air through the building to aid ventilation. Most importantly, they craft a shared social heart, a place of chance encounters and collective experience within an otherwise impersonal structure. The atrium represents an ancient and enduring human desire to harmonize our interior worlds with the essential elements of nature. It acknowledges that our well-being is tied to light, to air, to a sense of openness even when we are enclosed. In an age where we spend so much of our lives indoors, this ancient idea feels more relevant than ever. It challenges designers to create buildings that are not just efficient containers, but environments that nurture connection, both to each other and to the sky above, proving that sometimes the most important room in the house is the one with no ceiling at all. The open sky of the atrium celebrated community, but ancient builders also mastered the art of the definitive boundary, a line in the earth that declared safety through sheer, imposing presence. This is the fortification wall, a concept where architecture itself became a shield, a statement of deterrence carved from stone and strategy. From the legendary walls of Babylon, said to be wide enough for a chariot to turn upon, to the concentric, towering curtains of a medieval castle, these structures were far more than simple barriers. They were complex, three-dimensional puzzles designed to outthink any assault. Their massive, sloping bases or glacis were not just for grandeur, they made it difficult to bring siege ladders close and help deflect the impact of projectiles. The walkways along the top, the ramparts, provided a protected platform for defenders. Protruding bastions allowed archers to cover the wall's own face with flanking fire, creating deadly crossfire zones where an attacker was exposed from multiple angles. Gateways, the weakest point, were heavily fortified with portcullises, murder holes, and winding approaches that forced any invader into a slow, vulnerable channel. Every curve and angle was a calculated response to a threat, a material argument against chaos. While the age of castle sieges has passed, the underlying principles of this defensive design have not faded. They have simply evolved to meet new kinds of vulnerability. The core ideas of perimeter definition, controlled access, and layered security are deeply embedded in the modern world. Consider a high-security data center, its location often unmarked, surrounded by open grounds for clear sightlines, with access controlled through a series of man-traps and biometric checks. a digital age version of the guarded gatehouse. University campuses and corporate headquarters frequently use landscaping, low walls, and strategically placed buildings to create a defined perimeter that subtly controls flow without appearing overtly hostile, fostering a sense of contained community. Even the phenomenon of gated communities, for all its social complexity, applies the ancient logic of the fortified wall, creating a controlled boundary intended to ensure security and exclusivity. The transition is profound, from keeping armies out to managing traffic, privacy, or data integrity. This ancient concept teaches us that the design of a boundary is never neutral. It is a direct expression of what a society values and fears. It shows how the primal need for security constantly reinvents itself through architecture, translating the physical bastion into the monitored perimeter, the castle gate into the security checkpoint. The fortification wall reminds us that our spaces are always dialogues between openness and protection, between welcoming the world and defining a sanctuary from it, a balance we continue to negotiate with every line we draw in the landscape. Comfort in the ancient world was not just a luxury, it was a hard-won engineering achievement. While the Windcatcher mastered the art of cooling, Roman engineers confronted the opposite challenge in colder climates: how to warm vast spaces like public bathhouses and the sprawling villas of the wealthy. Their solution was a hidden fire, a system of invisible warmth called the Hypocaust. Beneath the elegant mosaic floors of these buildings, a furnace or prefernium burned continuously, often stoked by slaves. But the genius was in the distribution. The floor was not laid directly on the ground. Instead, it was raised on a grid of short brick pillars called pillae. This created a hollow space, a plenum, beneath the entire room. The hot gases and smoke from the furnace would flow into this cavity, swirling beneath the floor slabs and heating the thick masonry from below. In more sophisticated installations, terracotta box tiles were embedded within the walls themselves, creating vertical flues that allowed the hot air to rise through the walls before escaping through chimneys in the roof. This was central heating in its earliest, most elegant form, warming the very mass of the building to radiate a steady, even heat upward into the living space. It transformed the stone and tile from cold surfaces into gentle, radiant warmth, a far cry from the smoky, uneven heat of an open hearth. This ancient understanding of thermal mass and radiant heat transfer was a profound leap in environmental control. The Romans grasped that heating the structure itself, rather than just the air, created a more stable, comfortable, and efficient environment. The heat lingered in the thick floors and walls long after the furnace died down, and it rose evenly, warming people and objects directly without creating stifling, stratified air. This principle never truly vanished. It simply went dormant for centuries, waiting for technology to rediscover its wisdom. Today's radiant floor heating is the direct, refined descendant of the Hypocaust. Instead of hot air channeled beneath brick pillae, modern systems use a network of plastic tubing embedded in a concrete slab, circulating warm water or electric heating wires. The effect, however, is identical: a gentle, uniform warmth that emanates from the ground up, heating the thermal mass of the floor, which then radiates into the room. This is not merely a historical curiosity, it is a cornerstone of modern energy-efficient design. Radiant systems operate at lower temperatures than forced air heating, which wastes energy overheating air that quickly rises to the ceiling. By warming the surfaces people actually occupy, they provide superior comfort with significantly less energy. The ancient Hypocaust thus speaks directly to our contemporary pursuit of sustainability. It reminds us that true efficiency often comes from working with physics, not against it, from investing warmth into the fabric of a building so it can give that comfort back slowly and consistently. In an age of smart thermostats and high-tech insulation, This 2,000-year-old idea of heating from below remains one of the most intelligent and comfortable ways to warm a space, proving that the quest for a perfect ambient warmth is a very old dream finally realized anew. The Hypocaust warmed a space from below, but the first builders to span a roof faced a challenge from above. Before the elegant, self-locking curve of the Roman arch was widely known, other cultures developed a different, equally ingenious answer to the same fundamental question. How do you create a doorway in a wall of solid stone, or a ceiling for a sacred tomb, using only horizontal layers? Their solution was a patient, stair-stepped geometry known as the Corbelled arch. Picture a simple stone box. To create an opening in one wall, the builder would not attempt a single, spanning lintel if the stones were not strong enough. Instead, they would begin by laying two flat stones on either side of the gap, each one projecting slightly inward over the empty space. On top of these, another pair of stones would be laid, projecting just a little farther inward. Layer by layer, each course would cantilever further over the void, until the two sides finally met at the top, forming a narrow, triangular or stepped gateway. This was not a true arch with its compressive magic, but a brilliant feat of balance, a negotiation with gravity achieved through incremental daring. We see its solemn power in the massive lion gate of Mycenae, where the immense lintel is relieved by a corbelled triangle above, distributing the mountain's weight. We find it in the dark, soaring chambers of Mayan temples and tombs, where these stepped vaults create a narrow, tapering ceiling that seems to pull the gaze upward into mystery. The Corbelled arch was a testament to material logic, using the principle of the cantilever in a collective, layered form. While it could not span the vast distances of a true arch and required massively thick walls to counteract the outward thrust, it was a monumental leap forward. It proved that empty space could be captured and defined from solid mass, not by magic but by careful, cumulative projection. This ancient concept of building through incremental steps never faded from the designer's mind. You can see its legacy not in literal arches, but in the very silhouette of our cities. The iconic setback skyscrapers of the 1920s and 30s, like the Chrysler Building, use a cascading, stepped form that directly echoes the Corbelled principle, each tier receding as it rises. Modern stadiums with their stacked, cantilevered seating bowls create a similar profile of layered projection. The Corbelled arch teaches a quiet lesson about the nature of innovation itself. It shows us that progress is rarely a single, blinding flash of genius. More often, it is a staircase of iterative experiments, each step building on the last, each solution expanding the realm of the possible. The Maya and the Mycenaeans were not failed architects. They were pioneers on that staircase, developing a crucial technique that would eventually inform and be refined by others. Their stepped gateways stand as a powerful reminder that every great leap in engineering begins with a simple, courageous reach, and that the tools we take for granted today were once the patient, layered dreams of builders looking at a pile of stones and daring to imagine an opening. That patient, layered geometry of the Corbelled arch was a negotiation with gravity, but the most reliable partner for any ancient builder was not stone or timber, it was the sun itself. Long before the first solar panel was conceived, entire civilizations were conducting a silent, daily dialogue with our star, positioning their homes and temples not by chance but by celestial choreography. High in the arid cliffs of Mesa Verde, the ancestral Pueblones carved their dwellings deep into south-facing alcoves. This was not a random choice of scenery. The towering cliff face above acted as a massive, natural awning, blocking the high, scorching summer sun while allowing the lower, warming rays of the winter sun to penetrate deep into the living spaces. In the cold months, the sun would heat the massive stone walls of the cliff, which would then slowly radiate warmth throughout the night. In summer, the community enjoyed cool shade. This was architecture as a precise thermal instrument, using the Earth's own geometry to create a stable, livable climate. Half a world away, the ancient Egyptians oriented their temples along an east-west axis with such precision it still astounds astronomers. The inner sanctum of a temple was often positioned so that the rising sun on a specific day, like the solstice, would shine directly down the main axis to illuminate the statue of a god. This alignment served a profound spiritual purpose, but it also had a deeply practical thermal logic. The massive, thick walls and limited, strategically placed openings were designed to manage the intense desert heat, keeping interiors cool during the day and releasing stored warmth at night. These builders understood solar paths not as abstract lines in the sky, but as the very source of comfort and survival. They were masters of passive design, using the form, orientation, and mass of a building to collect, store, and block solar energy without any moving parts or consumed fuel. This ancient wisdom was not mystical. It was the first and most fundamental form of environmental engineering. Every decision, from the angle of a roof to the depth of an eave, was a calculated response to the sun's journey. Today, in the face of a warming planet and soaring energy costs, we are urgently relearning this ancient conversation. Modern sustainable architecture has a core principle called passive solar design, and it follows the exact same logic observed at Mesa Verde and Karnak. Architects now use sophisticated software to model the sun's path across a site at every hour of every day throughout the year. They carefully orient the building to maximize southern exposure in colder climates, allowing low winter sun to flood through generous, high-performance windows, a concept known as solar gain. These windows are not just glass, they are sophisticated filters, often with special coatings that let in light but trap heat. The floors and walls inside are frequently made of dense materials like concrete or stone, acting as thermal mass, just like the cliff face at Mesa Verde, absorbing heat during the day and releasing it slowly at night. To block the unwanted high summer sun, architects design shading devices, deep overhangs, louvers, or even deciduous trees that leaf out in summer and drop their leaves in winter. This is not about adding technology, but about subtracting needless energy used through intelligent form. The ancient practice teaches a transformative lesson, one that redefines a building's purpose. A structure is no longer seen as a sealed box that must be constantly heated or cooled by machines fighting the climate. Instead, it becomes an intelligent mediator, a filter tuned to its specific place on Earth. It harvests the free warmth of the winter sun and deflects the summer heat, working in harmony with natural cycles. This ancient concept, born from necessity and observation, has become one of our most powerful modern tools in the fight against climate change. It proves that the most sustainable energy source is not always something we have to invent, but something we have always known how to use, simply by paying attention to the light and standing in the right place. The sun's path is a universal guide, but the materials that answer its call are profoundly local. For ancient builders, choice was not an option. It was a conversation with the immediate landscape. They built with what was under their feet, in their forests and along their riverbanks. Stone was not imported, it was quarried from the nearest hill, its color and texture telling the story of the local geology. Timber was felled from surrounding woods, its grain and strength adapted to the regional climate. Clay was dug from riverbanks and baked into bricks in the sun or a simple kiln. Straw was mixed with mud to create insulating, breathable walls. This was not a primitive limitation, but a profound form of intelligence. A building made of local stone would naturally blend with the outcrops around it, its thermal mass perfectly suited to the daily temperature swings of that specific region. A timber frame from local forests would have already evolved to withstand the local patterns of wind and rain. The result was an architecture of deep harmony, where structures looked as if they had grown from the site itself, not been placed upon it. This practice was born from sheer necessity. There were no global supply chains, no cargo ships carrying steel across oceans, but this constraint fostered an incredible resilience and a deep sense of place. A community knew how to repair and maintain its buildings because the materials and techniques were part of their lived environment. The vernacular architecture of every culture, from the thatched cottages of England to the adobe pueblos of the American Southwest, is a testament to this local dialogue. Today, in an age of globalized materials where identical glass towers can rise in deserts and tundra alike, we are rediscovering the profound wisdom of this ancient practice under a new name: sustainable sourcing. Modern architects and builders now actively prioritize local, natural materials, but the reasons have evolved from necessity to ecological and philosophical imperative. The key term is embodied energy, the total amount of energy consumed to extract, process, transport, and install a building material. A limestone shipped from Europe to North America carries a massive carbon footprint in its journey, while a similar stone from a regional quarry carries only a fraction. By choosing local stone, timber, bamboo, or rammed earth, architects drastically reduce a building's environmental impact before anyone even moves in. But the benefits go far beyond carbon accounting. Using local materials reconnects a building to its bioregion, creating a structure that feels authentic and grounded. It supports local economies and craftspeople, preserving traditional skills. This principle is a driving force behind the biophilic design movement, which seeks to satisfy our innate human desire to connect with nature. A wall of locally quarried stone, with its unique fossils and hues, provides a tangible, sensory link to the land. Exposed timber beams bring the warmth and pattern of the forest inside. These materials age gracefully, weathering in ways that tell the story of the local climate, developing a patina that synthetic materials cannot replicate. The ancient practice teaches us that true sustainability is not just about high-tech gadgets, but about low-impact choices, about building lightly on the land with what the land provides. It is a lesson in humility and connection, reminding us that the most responsible and beautiful architecture does not conquer its site, but converses with it, creating a sense of belonging that is both timeless and urgently needed. To ascend is to make a choice, to leave one level for another, and ancient builders imbued this simple act with profound meaning. The staircase was never just a tool for climbing, it was a carefully choreographed ritual in stone. In the towering ziggurats of Mesopotamia, each steep, narrow step represented a deliberate journey away from the mundane world below, a physical and spiritual climb toward the temple at the summit where heaven met earth. The stepped sides of the Egyptian pyramid were not merely a stable shape for stacking blocks, they were a symbolic ladder for the pharaoh's soul to ascend to the stars. In the temples of Mesoamerica, the steep, often treacherous stairway leading to the summit was a test of devotion, separating the general populace from the sacred space of priests and ceremony. These monumental staircases were architecture as narrative, telling a clear story of hierarchy, aspiration, and the human desire to reach something greater than oneself. They controlled movement, pace, and perspective, forcing the climber to engage with the structure on its own imposing terms. The drama of this concept never faded. It was refined into civic theater, as seen in the elegant cascades of the Spanish Steps in Rome, which transform a practical hillside connection into a grand, theatrical gathering place, a stage for the city itself. This ancient understanding that a staircase can shape an experience and make a symbolic statement is fully alive in our modern world. Walk into the soaring atrium of a major museum, and you will often find a central, sweeping staircase that is far more than a circulation route. It is a focal point, a sculptural centerpiece that draws the eye upward and invites exploration. It organizes the flow of hundreds of visitors, creating a natural processional route that builds anticipation for the galleries above. In a bustling train station or airport terminal, a broad, gracious staircase does more than connect floors. It provides a moment of spatial clarity and ceremonial arrival or departure amidst the chaos of travel. Even in corporate headquarters, a prominent staircase can signal transparency and connection between different levels of an organization, a physical metaphor for open communication. The monumental staircase remains a timeless tool because it speaks to something fundamental in us. It creates drama through elevation. It offers a changing vantage point with every step, and it makes the act of moving through a building feel significant. In an age of elevators and escalators, the choice to include a grand, compelling staircase is a deliberate nod to that ancient legacy, a declaration that some journeys should be felt, not just completed. It proves that even the most functional element can be engineered to lift not just our bodies, but our spirits, framing our passage through space as a story worth telling. This grand tapestry reveals a single, enduring conversation. Each of these 20 concepts, from the arch to the atrium, is not a lonely relic but a vital thread in a continuous dialogue between humanity and the physical world. The ancient builders were not just solving isolated problems, they were developing a holistic philosophy of making. Their work was a seamless blend of art, science, and deep spiritual understanding, where every stone carried both a load and a meaning, where every wall defined both a space and a worldview. They listened to the whispers of materials, respected the silent laws of force, and sought harmony with the rhythms of sun, wind, and earth. This was engineering as an act of profound relationship. Today, our tools are unimaginably more powerful. We have computational models that can simulate stresses to the millimeter, alloys stronger than any known metal, and glass that can generate its own electricity. Yet, in our most forward-thinking work, we are not leaving that ancient wisdom behind. We are returning to its core principles with newfound urgency and sophistication. The drive for true sustainability pushes us to relearn passive solar alignment and natural ventilation, not as quaint ideas, but as essential strategies for a planet in balance. The quest for resilience in the face of climate events leads us back to the lessons of flexibility and intelligent mass, learning from structures that danced with earthquakes. The desire to create spaces that nurture human well-being refocuses us on proportion, light, and social connection, principles encoded in temples and homes millennia ago. This is not mere imitation or nostalgia. It is the recognition that these concepts form a foundational language, a set of deeply tested axioms about how to build well on this earth. We are not copying the past, we are engaging it in a timeless dialogue. We take that ancient grammar of the arch, the logic of the truss, the wisdom of local materials, and we reinterpret them with our new vocabulary of carbon fiber, smart glass, and digital fabrication. The Roman concrete recipe inspires a low-carbon future. The Windcatcher's logic evolves into a high-tech ventilation system. The bearing wall's honesty reemerges in the sculptural concrete core of a skyscraper. This is an unbroken chain of innovation where each generation stands on the shoulders of millennia, adding its own layer of discovery to an eternal pursuit. The most profound lesson may be this, that true progress does not always mean inventing something entirely new. Sometimes it means listening more deeply to the oldest voices in the room, understanding the why behind the how, and realizing that the smartest path forward is often illuminated by the longest-lasting light. The arch, the windcatcher, the bearing wall, each one is a silent teacher. Our journey through these 20 concepts reveals a humbling and thrilling truth. The most advanced engineering is not always about what is new, but about what is deeply, fundamentally true. These ancient principles are not museum pieces. They are the active, living grammar within the steel, glass, and concrete that surrounds you right now. They prove that human genius is not defined by the sophistication of our tools, but by the clarity of our understanding, by a profound dialogue with the unchanging laws of gravity, geometry, and climate, and with the enduring needs of the human spirit. The Roman engineer who calibrated the gentle slope of an aqueduct and the Inca mason who fitted stones against a trembling mountain were solving for the same constants we face today: how to shelter, connect, and sustain a community on this earth. As we stare down our own monumental challenges, from climate adaptation to rapid urbanization, the answers may not lie solely in the next technological breakthrough. They might be waiting for us in the quiet logic of the past, in these time-tested solutions that prioritized resilience, harmony, and longevity over speed and disposability. The future of building, of creating spaces that are both sustainable and soul-stirring, may very well depend on our willingness to listen to these ancient voices, to fuse their enduring wisdom with our modern capabilities. If this conversation across millennia resonates with you, we would love to hear which ancient concept you find most fascinating. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to keep exploring the hidden connections that shape our world, subscribe to join us on the next discovery. Thank you for watching.